Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook, Minecraft, starting with the Awakening Block Puppet Master. Chapter 81, Deep Valley of Soul Sand. The sound of the collision of bones came one after another, and the strong withering power almost made the place barren. At a glance, everything was filled with corrupted soul sand. It's hard to imagine that there are any living beings living here. On a nether fortress that spans east and west, there are countless withered skeletons patrolling back and forth. Once they discover a foreign invasion, they will immediately enter a state of war. In the center of the fortress is a very strange main hall building. The top of the main hall is filled with withered skulls. In the main hall, the Withering King sat on the throne, looking down with indifferent eyes. There is an old man in purple robes beside him. It is worth mentioning that under this old man's cloak are not black bones, but the white color of a normal skeleton. Under the main hall, some skeleton soldiers were kneeling in twos and threes. They lowered their heads and did not dare to look at their king, as if they were afraid of something. "Have you gathered the 100 pig spirits I want today?" The Wither King said leisurely in a cold voice. "If you want to reply to the king, there is only one left to go." The leader of the withered soldiers replied tremblingly. "Oh, one more to go." The Wither King opened his eyes. He was very dissatisfied with this answer, and the karma in the skull's eyes was filled with anger. "King, don't worry, we are looking for you, wait for an hour, we will definitely catch you." Before the Wither soldier could explain, a big black hand suddenly grabbed him, and the extremely rich power of Wither immediately enveloped him. "No, King, spare my life, I know I was wrong, spare, ah." The big hand continued to shrink, and the sound of bones breaking mixed with the screams of skeletons were annihilated in the black smoke. Immediately afterwards, the black smoke was quickly recovered and returned to the Wither King's body. The withered soldier just now has disappeared, leaving only a solitary withered head. "Trash, there are so many piglins in the Crimson Forest, you can't catch 100 piglins every day, you are just a bunch of trash." The Wither King waved his newly grown arm, which was still a little uncomfortable to use. The withered soldiers in the audience were so frightened that they didn't even dare to raise their heads. There are indeed many piglins in the Crimson Forest, but they have to be able to get in. The golden axe of the pig spirit barbarian is not a vegetarian. The wither soldiers looked at each other, and they all saw the helplessness and sadness in each other's eyes. Recently, their king broke an arm and needed a lot of withered bones to repair his body. As long as there is a small thing that makes the Withering King unhappy, the final outcome will be to merge with the king. "Someone, take down this head and place it on the top of the hall as a warning. By the way, bring up the 99 pig spirits today." Yes, as if they had found a savior, 3 or 2 wither soldiers rushed to pick up the heads of their companions on the ground, hoping to use them to get out of here. When the purple-robed old man saw this scene, he couldn't help shaking his head and laughing, and said, "As the king of a clan, he actually uses his own people to repair his body. It's ridiculous. It's really ridiculous." The Wither King slowly looked at the purple-robed old man. He was not angry because of the other man's ridicule, but looked a little surprised. "No matter how you look at it, you are just an ordinary skeleton." The purple-robed old man chuckled, tapping the beat gently with his fingers, and said in a lazy voice, "Whether I am ordinary or not is not the point. The point is, I can sit here and communicate with you as an equal, right?" The purple-robed old man's words were thorny and did not give the Withering King any face at all. The karma fire in the eyes of the Withering King kept flickering, but he was still unable to detect the true and false nature of the other party, and in the end he had no choice but to give up. Some time ago, after he failed to block the door, the purple-robed old man approached the Withering King on his own and claimed that he had a way to become a god. At first, the Wither King didn't believe it. He had been exploring the realm of demigods for most of his life, but he still couldn't find a way to go any further. The other party was just an ordinary skeleton from the upper world, so how could he possibly know how to become a god? But the fact slapped him hard on the spot. The purple-robed old man not only gave the idea of becoming a god, he also took out a box with the aura of a god. The divine breath on the box is very weak and can be blown away by a gust of wind, but the Wither King is certain that it is the divine breath. That was a state he could not reach after groping for most of his life. The Wither King felt as if he was frozen in place, a surge of anger constantly rising in his heart, and his voice was cold and hoarse. You said that the fundamental reason why the Wither clan cannot become gods is because we have no flesh and blood. The old man in purple robe nodded and replied. Yes, you, the Wither clan, gave up your flesh and blood and specialized in the power of Wither. This in itself is a very biased approach. Wanting to become an omniscient and omnipotent god is simply a fool's errand. HMPH. The Wither King snorted coldly, reached out and smashed the throne on his left, gritting his teeth. So I followed your method. I have been sucking the flesh and blood of 100 piglins every day for this month. Why is there no movement in the realm? The purple-robed old man didn't take it seriously, and continued to speak without even looking at the Withering King. 100 piglins per day are too little flesh and blood, and 1 month is also too short. As the king of the Withering clan, you don't even have this patience. King Wither suppressed the anger in his heart. As the king of his clan, he was always a little uncomfortable being despised by an outsider. Your method better work, otherwise you will die miserably. The purple-robed old man did not answer this time, but looked at the 99 pig spirits who were brought into the hall. Let's get started. The flesh and blood sacrifices are a bit lacking today. The Wither King's eyes were cold, and he condensed a black nether star from his body, which was the origin of his wither. The next moment, countless tentacles stretched out and plunged straight into these half-dead pig spirits. The pig spirits screamed in pain. Their fat bodies were drying up at a speed visible to the naked eye. In the end, even their bones were eroded into ashes by the power of withering and dissipated invisible. The Wither King closed his eyes and enjoyed the flesh and blood flowing into his body. Then he suddenly let out a breath of black air, as if it had hurt his origin. You're kidding me. The corrosion of decay is in conflict with flesh and blood. How can you improve your realm by absorbing flesh and blood? The Wither King suddenly realized something, and the murderous intent in his eyes was intense to the extreme. If the purple-robed old man doesn't have a perfect explanation, he will definitely make the other person disappear in pain instantly. The face of the purple-robed skeleton remained as calm as ever, as if he had no intention of explaining anything. Court death. The Withering King roared angrily and raised his hand to kill the opponent. Just when he was about to take action, his demigod cultivation that had not been touched for 100 years suddenly became loose. This is actually true. The Wither King was a little unbelievable. His outstretched hand suddenly stopped, and he almost killed the purple-robed skeleton in front of him in an instant. His realm that had not been touched for 100 years just now was really loosened. Although it dropped back again the next moment, the feeling of going further is real. The old man in purple robe snorted coldly, his eyes full of disdain, and he said playfully, "Come, kill me. Oh, by the way, I forgot to tell you that sucking flesh and blood is only the first step to improve your realm. If you want to consolidate your realm, you must find another way. And there is another way, I am the only one in the world who knows it." The purple-robed skeleton's words were a naked warning. If he died, the skeleton's method of entering the divine realm would be lost forever. The Wither King took a deep breath and changed his face in an instant. Since the other party really has a way to become a god, then he must try his best to get it. Ha ha ha, sir, you are so talented. How could I be willing to kill him? It was my lack of consideration just now that scared you, sir. Now I want you to apologize. With that said, the Wither King was about to bow to the purple-robed old man. No need. The purple-robed old man waved his hand to interrupt, stood up and was about to leave. Wait a moment. The Wither King's eyes turned cold, the flattery on his face disappeared, and he asked the doubts in his heart. I'm curious as to why you want to help me. Since the method of becoming a god is useful, what is your intention? The old man in purple robe stopped, and the red light in his eyes lit up. Intention. It's very simple. I'm just waiting for someone. Waiting for someone. The other party's unfinished words made the Wither King a little confused, and he continued to ask, is there any necessary relationship between waiting for someone and teaching me the method of becoming a god? Of course, and there is a very deep connection. The purple-robed skeleton laughed, his voice became extremely serious, and he said again, because this is also part of the plan. The karma in King Wither's eyes shrank, and he said fiercely, are you using me as a chess piece? The purple-robed skeleton has almost made it clear that he is now using the Wither King, and his intention is that simple. And the helpless thing is, the Wither King had to follow the opponent's wishes again, because he wanted to become a god, and the opponent happened to hold 7 inches of him. This is conspiracy. Even if he told the Wither King clearly about the above-board conspiracy, he still couldn't decipher it. After thinking for a moment, the Wither King gritted his teeth and said, "You want me to be your pawn, that's totally fine, but I hope that after you complete your purpose, I can get the complete method of becoming a god." Of course, it should be so. The purple-robed skeleton turned to look at the Withering King, the faint red light in his eyes looking extremely terrifying. The Wither King couldn't help but shudder in his heart when he looked at this look. The other person's eyes were as if he were looking at a work of art, and he didn't take him seriously at all. The purple-robed skeleton didn't stop either. He stepped off the high platform and prepared to walk out of the hall. The Wither King's fists clenched, and it felt really uncomfortable to be manipulated by the other party. Otherwise, kill him here. An idea flashed through the King of Wither's mind. As long as he killed the guy in front of him, no matter what the other party's intentions were, there would no longer be any benefits. Thinking like this, he gathered the power of withering in his hand and slowly raised his right hand, targeting the purple-robed skeleton walking outside the hall. No, that's the way to become a god. I have to get it no matter what. Even if it costs a little, it's worth it. The Wither King had no choice but to wave his hand to extinguish the power of Wither. He really wanted to go further, and the feeling of being stuck in the realm of demigods forever was really uncomfortable. A smile appeared on the purple-robed skeleton's lips. He naturally felt the withering power gathered behind him, but he also pinned the opponent accurately and did not dare to kill him. The other side. Withered Xiaoke returned to the lower realm fortress in despair, still thinking about Wu Nian's safety in his heart. Suddenly, the skeleton guarding the fortress laughed loudly, catching her attention. "Hey, isn't this Wu Nian who was slapped to death by the king? Why is it in your hands?" Withering Xiaoke's heart sank and he quickly looked towards the entrance of the fortress. At the gate of the fortress, a spy team was escorting an unconscious player. Taking a closer look, this person was Wu Nian who had just parted with her. Vice Captain Withering rubbed his cracked head, kicked Wu Nian viciously, and said, "We caught him in the hinterland of the Piglin clan. Damn, this is still a tough guy. I almost couldn't come back." The skeleton guarding the gate laughed apologetically. "Isn't it the job of your spy team to lick blood from the tip of a knife? The greater the risk, the greater the reward. I've been guarding the gates here for a year, but I may not be able to compare with your military exploits when you go out once." The withered deputy captain raised his head, looking a little proud. "That is, when we hand over Wu Nian to the king's disposal, and find a good position with military merit, we won't have to do these hard work anymore." Captain Wither patted the deputy, with a hint of reproach in his voice. "Okay, hurry up and send this person to the king. To avoid a long night and many dreams. Okay, let's go in first, and you guys should guard the door." The withered deputy captain smiled proudly and dragged the unconscious Wu Nian in. The skeleton guarding the gate watched the team leave with eyes full of envy. "Oops, Wu Nian, why are you so careless?" Wither Xiaoke was stamping his feet anxiously in the distance. Just now, he was thinking about when to meet again in the future, but in the blink of an eye, he met him again. "What should I do? If Wu Nian falls into the king's hands, he will definitely be eaten as meat. I must find a way. How about I bribe the spy team to let Wu Nian go?" "Ah, that's Wu Nian, what can I use to bribe them? Her status in the clan is not high, and she is not much better than the withering guard who guards the fortress, so it is impossible to get him out through relationships. Moreover, Wu Nian's identity is known to everyone, and the other party is a thorn in the side of the Wither King. No matter how high his official position is in the Wither clan, he cannot cover up this matter. Now that Wu Nian has been arrested, death is only a matter of time. No, I have to find a way to save Wu Nian's life." Wither Xiaoke quickly followed the Wither spy team. If she gave up, Wu Nian would really have no chance of surviving. Not long after, Captain Wither's voice sounded from the Wither King's main hall. "King, look what we brought you." Just as they were talking, they let go and the unconscious Wu Nian was thrown directly into the hall. The Wither King took a nap and looked up, with a hint of surprise in his eyes. The unconscious player was Wu Nian who he had killed before. "Wu Nian, you're not dead yet," Wang Nanan said, and she immediately became interested. Captain Wither continued, "King, When we were capturing the pig spirit for you, we happened to meet this person. We guessed that he may have defected to the pig spirit clan. So we brought this person back and waited for the king to deal with him. Captain Wither and Deputy Captain Wither talked to each other and summarized the general process. The Wither King nodded. Although he didn't know how Wunyan survived, it was no longer important because the other party was now in his hands again. You have done a good job. Everyone will receive the corresponding military merits later. Thank you, King. The two Withers were overjoyed, thanked them quickly, and retreated. During the conversation, Wunyan woke up leisurely. Netherworld Castle, I'm back again. The familiar scene appeared before his eyes again. But today is different from the past. Back then, he was summoned by the Wither King in the name of a genius, but now he is indeed a prisoner. Wunyan wanted to stand up, but his hands and feet had been pierced, and his body was bleeding. Wunyan, long time no see. How have you been lately? The Wither King's false concern reached Wunyan's ears, making his stomach churn. Bah, you villain. I was really blind, and I actually called you the king. Wunyan spat immediately, his face full of disgust. The Wither King doesn't care either, he won't be angry with a dying person. I'm curious how you survive, can you tell me? Wunyan turned his face away, not wanting to answer the question. The Wither King rubbed his two skull fingers and expressed his guess. I heard that you have joined the Pig Spirit clan. No, this is just an illusion. Although the dead pig does not reject foreigners as we do Withering, it will never be kind enough to take in you, an unwanted piece of trash. If I guess correctly, your new master should be the guy who controls the puppet. The Wither King's words made Wunyan's breathing slightly disordered, and he couldn't help but take a breath. Ha ha ha, it seems I guessed it right. The Wither King lay down, his voice a bit lazy. The King of Piglins assesses timing and is good at seizing opportunities. The King of Withering is vicious, and he is decisive in his actions. Their personalities may be different, but as kings of the same clan, the Piglin King is a wise man, and so is the Wither King. Submitting to the Pig Spirit clan without any thought is just the most superficial thing, and attaching yourself to that puppet boy is the correct answer. Wunyan said fiercely, if you want to kill me, kill me. Do you have to care who I submit to? The Wither King got a little tired of playing, bent down and stood up from his seat, and said. Okay, very good, I like your unruly look. Today I have one less blood meal, so I'll use you to make up the number. The movements of the Wither King and Wunyan were not small, and their voices spread far away, echoing throughout the lower realm fortress. Tisk, 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 this Wunyan is really hard to kill. He is actually still alive. If I had been struck by the king's palm, I would have been reincarnated by now. HMPH. Even though Wunyan is a foreigner, his qualifications are mediocre. Your qualifications as a three-legged cat can still be compared with others. You're on a high level. At this time, a large number of skeleton soldiers had gathered outside the hall. Looking at the half-disabled Wunyan above the hall, they felt filled with emotion. Thinking back to when Wunyan was reused by the Wither King and all resources were skewed, in less than a month, he quickly grew from an inconspicuous waste to a first-order warrior and was highly respected. You must know that if a skeleton soldier with ordinary qualifications wants to complete a step, it will take at least 10 years of practice. If you have good talent, 5 or 6 years will definitely be indispensable. Wunyan, on the other hand, only took more than a month to complete the journey that took others more than 10 years. Such a talent is also very explosive for the entire Wither clan. It doesn't matter if you have strong qualifications, you might as well die later. Yeah, it's a pity. It's really a pity. These skeletons all came here to eat melon after hearing that Wunyan was resurrected from the dead. During the time Wunyan lived in the Withering clan, he had impressed many Withering people. Now that the other party has finally survived, but has to die again, he will sigh and feel regretful. The habits of the Wither and the Piglins are different. They don't have such a strong sense of territoriality. Although there are big and small positions, there are no rules. Even a skeleton with a low status, if he learns any important information, can enter the hall with swagger and report to the Wither King without anyone's approval. Therefore, skeletons peeking and eavesdropping through the walls often happen. The Wither King learned a piece of news first, and once it was heard by the skeleton soldiers patrolling outside the door. In just a few hours, the news will spread throughout the fortress. No one knows about it, no one knows about it. The Withering King didn't care, and he was too lazy to rectify this trend. Besides, sharing information also had many benefits. At this time, Wither Xiaoke was hiding among the many skeletons, feeling a little uneasy. When she heard that Wu Nian was going to be treated as blood food, she clenched her hands unconsciously and prayed silently in her heart. Wu Nian, stop talking and give in to the king. Then you may still have a chance to survive. If possible, she never wanted to see Wu Nian die again. But what happened was counterproductive. Withering Xiaoke was praying outside, but Wu Nian endured the pain in his hands and feet and stood up, cursing. Old man, don't forget to tell me before you kill someone. This is not your style. A sneer appeared on Wu Nian's face, and he mocked the Withering King. I remember that you gave me a slap when I trusted you the most. That slap is still fresh in my memory. Today, you are so gentle, I am so touched, ha ha ha. Wu Nian's words are filled with strange yin and yang, and every word is thorny. After he finished speaking, he continued to laugh wildly, completely ignoring the threat of the Withering King. He was unable to resist now, so he could earn one more taunt before he died. When I was beaten last time, I didn't have time to scold this old man. I must be arrogant before I die this time. Many skeletons outside the main hall gasped in unison, and the sounds of bones colliding could be heard one after another. Wow Sao, he is mocking the king. Although there is no curse word, it sounds like he wants to beat him so much. This is the power of yin and yang strange energy. Wu Nian is miserable. No, he is deliberately irritating the king and actively seeking death. The skeletons outside the door all sweated for Wu Nian. Apart from the pig spirit king, Wu Nian is the only one who dares to publicly mock the Withering King in this way. Withered Xiaoke almost burst into tears at Wu Nian's words. Wu Nian, you are confused. Originally, there was a chance that he could survive if he surrendered, but now that the taunting words were spoken, Wu Nian would have to die even if the King of Heaven came. Really, as soon as these words came out, the Wither King's eyes began to become sharp. The power of withering condensed into a big hand and suddenly grabbed Wu Nian, and then continued to shrink. Gentle, haha, why didn't I know you were so taunting before? Since you want to die, then I will make it happen for you. As he spoke, the origin of the Wither King emerged, and a strong sense of corrosion instantly enveloped Wu Nian. Ah, the strong corrosive power made Wu Nian miserable, and the flesh on his body began to corrode and fall off bit by bit. The Wither King did not choose to eat the opponent's flesh and blood like he absorbed the piglin. Instead, he uses his own withering power to slowly erode the opponent's withering origin, so that Wu Nian can watch his own skin and flesh fall off and deteriorate, or even rot. The whole process will be excruciating. Hey, how about it? It doesn't feel good to have your skin rubbed off bit by bit. The Wither King's movements were very light, like peeling a red blood orange. Wu Nian gritted his teeth, suddenly stopped shouting, suppressed the extreme physical pain, and glared fiercely at the Withering King. That's it. Kill me if you can. If I have a chance to live, I will definitely take off your head and make it into a decoration. It is not a wise choice to anger a demigod. The more you want to die, the more I will torture you. The Wither King could tell that the other party was deliberately irritating him. The movements of his hands became slower, and the sound of corroded flesh and blood increased by another level. Ah, the intense pain instantly broke through Wu Nian's tolerance, almost bringing him to the edge of fainting. Slowly, his vision began to blur, and his skin and flesh were eroded and rotten. If he looked carefully, he could actually see white bones. The handsome young man had turned into an ugly monster at this time. His face was full of muscles that were constantly curled up due to pain. Looking at it, there was no intact skin at all. His skinning injury is irreversible. Even if he returns to peak health, his skin will not grow back. As a demigod, the Wither King controlled his attacks to the extreme. Even though Wu Nian was in so much pain, his blood volume did not drop much and he was always in a certain balance. The Wither King's intention is also very obvious, that is, to play with death without any thought and make it go crazy in extreme pain. The skeletons outside the main hall listened to the harsh and painful sound, and suddenly a feeling of sorrow for the death of a rabbit and a fox surged in their hearts. They don't sympathize with Wu Nian because they are withered skeletons, the other party's own enemies. The Wither King has no problem killing his opponent. But they didn't jump for joy either. Without flesh and blood, they naturally cannot feel the pain. But the senses of the spirit are connected. Seeing Wu Nian being tortured like this, the bloodthirsty nature in their hearts unexpectedly calmed down, and some were left with only the fear of pain. Let's go. There's nothing to see. A withered skeleton took the hand of another skeleton and prepared to leave this place. The other skeleton didn't resist and nodded without saying a word. Gradually, most of the dense withered skeletons around him disappeared. Wither Xiaoke was already stunned on the spot, and the black power of wither flowed out of her eyes, which were her tears. No, I have to find a way to save Wu Nian. Just as she was thinking about it, she was about to rush into the hall to plead for Wu Nian, but the remaining reason in her heart stopped her. She was just a withering little soldier, how could the arrogant king give her face? After entering, Wu Nian will only be tortured even worse by the withering king, and he won't even have the right to die. Just when she was feeling discouraged, an old and gentle voice sounded in her ears. You want to save him? I have a way. Withering Xiaoke's eyes lit up and he quickly looked back. But to her surprise, there was no one behind her. Audio hallucination. Withering Xiaoke's mood was a little depressed, and the voice just now seemed to appear in his ears, so real. The truth was a little false, making her think it was an auditory hallucination for a moment. No, you're hallucinating. Turn your head and look at the tower on the right. The old voice sounded again, and the other party seemed to be able to understand what Xiaoke was thinking, and explained very patiently. Withering Xiaoke relied on the other party's guidance and quickly discovered the other party. On a watchtower 300 meters away, a purple-robed skeleton was standing there waving to Xiaoke, showing gentleness in every move. High Priest. Withering Xiaoke was startled and took a step back unconsciously. She didn't understand how the other party could reach her ears when they were so far apart. Among the Wither clan, people with official positions are called priests, and just like the piglin landlords, they are divided into large, medium and small. The purple-robed skeleton was named the High Priest because he taught the Wither King how to become a god, and was respected by thousands of skeletons. High Priest, where is he? Why didn't I see it? As soon as the surrounding skeletons that had not left heard the arrival of the High Priest, they all followed Wither Xiaoke's gaze, but they did not see anything. The observation deck was empty. What? It scared me to death. You can't make such a joke randomly. The skeletons around them cursed and turned to look into the hall again. Although they do not have a strong sense of territoriality, low-ranking officials still have to salute when meeting high-ranking officials. Their superiority and inferiority will not change regardless of race. Only I can see the High Priest. Withering Xiaoke was slightly shocked, and quickly covered his mouth, looking at the observation tower again. The purple-robed skeleton was still standing there, not moving, and the looming white light in his eyes was very eye-catching. I remember when she heard others say that the purple-robed skeleton High Priest was just an ordinary skeleton from the upper world and had no abilities. Obtaining the position of High Priest is purely based on the method of becoming a god. Therefore, when some skeletons see purple-robed skeletons, they will not even salute. Now it seems that the other party's ability to become the High Priest is not just in vain. Withered Xiaoke was overjoyed. The greater the opponent's ability, the higher the possibility of rescuing Wu Nian. The purple-robed skeleton made a silent gesture on his lips and said again, "Don't make any noise. If you want to save Wu Nian, just nod." Wither Xiaoke's eyes were full of surprise. He looked around at the skeletons around him. After finally making sure that no one was paying attention to him, he nodded heavily. Okay. The purple-robed skeleton smiled, and in the next moment, the whole person turned into a black mist and disappeared. Before Withered Xiaoke could react, a purple robe appeared in her hand. Go in and report it, and tell King Wither that Wu Nian is his second way to become a god. Don't kill him. After rescuing Wu Nian, just cover him with this robe. Remember this. Withering Xiaoke was delighted and without thinking too much, he rushed into the hall with his purple robe in his arms. At this time, Wu Nian had been tortured by the Withering King until he was reduced to a human form. Every part of his body was covered in blood and flesh, and his spirit was on the verge of collapse. King, show mercy. Please spare Wu Nian's life. Withered Xiaoke shouted loudly, standing sideways in front of Wu Nian. Surprise appeared in the Wither King's eyes. He was very dissatisfied with this skeleton that disturbed him from peeling blood oranges. You dare to plead for this foreigner, but you also want to die. Wither King's words were like an invisible mountain, instantly crushing Wither Xiaoke to the ground. His body frame began to creak, and there was a faint tendency of being crushed. King, spare Wu Yan's life. Wither Xiaoke is usually a timid skeleton soldier, how could she cope with such a scene? The strong pressure made it difficult for her to breathe. The words that the purple-robed skeleton confessed were held in his heart and he couldn't say them out. Wu Yan was in a daze, and his head with only one eyeball left slowly looked at withered Xiaoke who was pressed on the ground, whimpering in his mouth. Why are you here? Get out quickly and leave me alone. His voice was very soft, or maybe it was just what he was saying, because Wu Yan now had no flesh and blood in his throat and could not make any sound. If he hadn't awakened the power of withering and could rely on his own withering source to continue his life, other players would have died from such injuries dozens of times. Purple robe. Withering Xiaoke suppressed the fear in his heart and took out the purple robe in his arms. The strength in the Wither King's hand loosened, Wu Yan's floating body fell to the ground, and the pressure on Xiaoke gradually disappeared. It's that bastard again. Tell me, he wants you to tell me something. The Wither King was not happy with the purple-robed skeleton's previous troubles, and there was a bit of boredom in his voice. Wu Yan is the key to your becoming a god, please be sure to save his life. Withered Xiaoke took a heavy breath, not daring to hesitate in the slightest. The fire in the eyes of the Withering King shrank, and he said coldly, what a coincidence. I just wanted to kill him, and you came. King, I didn't lie, everything I said was true. Wither Xiaoke's body has been shaken into chaff, and the whole body's skeleton is crackling. Then why didn't he come in person instead of asking you to report? I think you seem to care about Wu Yan's life and death. The Wither King just said a few words, which directly tore the Wither Xiaoke's psychological defense to pieces. I don't know. The faint karma in Xiaoke's eyes flickered, and he was obviously extremely nervous. Just like that, the atmosphere in the hall suddenly solidified strangely, becoming so quiet that even the melon-eating skeletons outside the hall stopped moving. After a long time, the Withering King waved his hand and said helplessly, it seems that I have been worrying too much. The purple-robed skeleton does things without any rules. This is actually in line with the other person's character. When he thought about it carefully, this made sense. Although the purple-robed skeleton was not very powerful, it did very strange and unpredictable things. If the other party doesn't want to come forward, it may just be that he doesn't want to come forward. It's not that complicated. Did he tell you what the second way to become a god is? The King of Withering asked. Seeing that the king had no intention of taking action again, Withering Xiaoke quickly replied, no. That's all the high priest told me. Okay, I'll ask myself later. The Wither King had a headache. As the leader of a clan, he was led by a skeleton from the upper realm. This made him very embarrassed. Take Wu Yan down first, and find a few skeletons who are stepping on the stairs for the second time to keep a close watch. Oh, by the way, try to get some recovery potion, but don't let him really die. Yes, Withering Xiaoke nodded repeatedly, wrapped Wu Yan in his purple robe, then picked him up and turned around to leave. There was not much flesh and blood left on Wu Yan's body, and everything he could see was just bones. The only complete thing in the body may be the beating heart in the chest. Wait a moment, the Wither King suddenly spoke, looked at the Wither Xiaoke up and down, remembered the appearance of the skeleton in his heart, and said again. May I have your name? Skeleton Soldier, Xiaoke. Withered Xiaoke's voice was trembling. Well, the name is a good one, but the realm is a bit low. From today on, you will be responsible for Wu Yan's diet and daily life. If he dies, you know what will happen. Xiaoke will definitely live up to the king's trust. Withered Xiaoke was slightly happy, but did not show it. After bowing to the king, he hurriedly left the hall. With this order, she could take care of Wu Yan openly. The Wither King narrowed his eyes, still a little worried. He waved and called the 3 skeleton guards. The auras of these 3 skeleton guards were all above level 20 and said again. Watch Wu Yan. If the opponent wants to escape, just chop off both feet without reporting. The 3 skeleton guards bowed in unison, yes. Now Wu Yan has basically lost his combat effectiveness. Without 3 or 4 months of training, it is impossible to restore his blood volume to full. Even if the blood volume is restored to full, the state will not be able to return to its peak due to excessive loss of flesh and blood. Not to mention 3 skeleton guards of over 20 levels, now even a level 10 skeleton soldier can easily defeat each other. After everything was done, withering Xiaoke left with Wu Nian in his arms. The Valley of Soul Sand has no end as far as the eye can see. It is just a black desert. Soul Sand, as the name suggests, is sand full of wrong souls. When players walk on it, it will significantly slow down their driving speed and consume additional hunger points. The Wither clan does not have a prison cell in the strict sense. The dark, depraved, and fearful Soul Sand Valley itself is a large natural prison cell. Of course, this effect will not work on Withering, because they originally belong to the Undead clan, so naturally they are not afraid of the souls of the dead. On the other side, on the higher ground, a purple figure stood here, witnessing all this. He didn't take action personally, but he arranged everything clearly. All is ready except for the opportunity. The purple-robed skeleton muttered, various images rotating in his eyes, obviously speculating on something. Snoring. A burst of pig squealing broke the purple-robed skeleton's thoughts. Looking sideways, a hell gate appeared behind him at some point. A pink pig jumped out of the gate of hell. This pig is not a pig spirit, it is just an ordinary domestic pig from the upper world. If you look closely, it seems that this pig does not even have intelligence. The purple-robed skeleton put a smile on his lips, put his hands behind his head, and lay down as a pillow, saying, "Ha, long time no see, blood god. How have you been lately?" The domestic pig tilted its head and glanced at the purple-robed skeleton, snored twice without replying, and just kept to itself, nudging the skeleton's purple robe with its nose, having a great time. HMPH. You still have to pretend, since it's just an ordinary domestic pig, then I'm going to kill it for meat. As he spoke, a black mist condensed in the hands of the purple-robed skeleton, an extremely powerful fear emanated from it. Seeing that the other party was about to come for real, the pig's eyes became much clearer on the spot, as if he had gained supreme wisdom at this moment and spoke human words. "Hey, you little seaweed. We haven't seen you for so long. This is how you treat an old friend. You can't take a joke, can you?" As he spoke, a crown gradually appeared on the pig's head, and his appearance suddenly became much more solemn. "Laver, ha, I haven't heard this title for a long time. Now apart from the one I follow, you are the only one who remembers it." The purple-robed skeleton couldn't help but feel very good. He stood up and sat up. He looked at every move of everyone in the lower fortress with long eyes and spoke again. "However, people nowadays are more willing to call me the Dread Lord. At first glance, I seem to be a big devil who does all kinds of evil." The blood god did not transform into a human form, but bent his forelegs and lay beside the Dread Lord, jokingly saying, "The name Dread Lord is quite good. At least it fits your cold and aloof persona." A little helplessness appeared on the skeletal face of the Dread Lord. He looked at his skeletal hands, sighed, and replied, "You also know that I hate myself the way I am now. What you call coldness is just that I don't want to see people with this face." Seeing this, the blood god shook his head and quickly changed the subject. "You guys, one by one, all took Notch's words as fart, didn't you? You agreed not to interfere, but now you are about to take action and punch a hole in the world." The Dread Lord didn't take it seriously when he heard the blood god's complaints, and his voice was as calm as ever. "I have never personally interfered with the development of the mortal body from beginning to end. I have to provide evidence when I speak. Be careful, I will sue you for slander." A vein stretched out on the blood god's forehead, and he was speechless for a moment. "Okay, I haven't seen you for so long. When did you become so thick-skinned?" The principle of non-interference mentioned by Notch only allows you not to interfere with your own mortal body. Also, using someone else's hand to interfere is not considered intervention. The Dread Lord spread his hands, showing a posture as if a skeleton was not afraid of being scalded by boiling water, and replied, "Otherwise you go to Notch and sue me. I didn't stop you. Shameless. Laver, you have changed." The blood god gritted his molars until he made a loud noise, and then sighed helplessly, "I'm not as boring as you, sue you. I'm too lazy to go." After the Blood God finished complaining about the Dread Demon King, he turned to look at the lower fortress. The white light in his eyes overflowed. His sight spanned thousands of miles, passed through the obstacles of all blocks, and finally landed on Wu Nian, who was wearing a purple robe. At this time, Wu Nian was locked in a matchbox made of stone bricks from the lower realm. His breath was very weak, as if he would die in the next second. Your mortal body. The Dread Lord nodded and said nothing more. The Blood God put away the divine light in his eyes and said, since it's been finalized, why don't you go back? I haven't put my name on it yet. The Dread Lord said coldly. In name. The Blood God smiled directly, is it necessary? I'm wearing a purple robe, isn't this more useful than in name? Not named yet. The Dread Lord said the same thing, not wanting to explain anything to the Blood God. The Blood God narrowed his eyes, and after a long silence, he spoke in a low voice. I think you are a drunkard and don't care about drinking. Do you have other goals? As soon as these words came out, the Dread Demon King's eyes turned cold, and the faint karma in his eyes squinted at the Blood God, and he spoke. What on earth do you want to express? The Blood God was not deterred and looked directly into the eyes of the Dread Lord and said. It's very simple. I can think about it with my pig brain. You. Jurjurji. Before the Blood God finished speaking, the pig he possessed was instantly swallowed up by a black mist. In the blink of an eye, the entire pig was turned into powder, and there were no dropped items like pork chops. HMPH. Let me tell you why you appeared here for no reason. It turns out you are here to trouble me. The Dread Lord waved his hand and blew away the ashes beside him. You are becoming more and more disgusting, can't you just let me finish my sentence? The gate of hell rose again, and a pink domestic pig that was exactly the same as before jumped out, with a sullen look in its eyes. The Dread Lord doesn't care what the other party thinks of him, he just raises his hand and snaps his fingers. The next moment, the domestic pig was also covered in black smoke. Ouch, you're still here. It's not over yet, Jurjurji. The domestic pig vomited blood and fell to the ground, succumbing to his injuries. The screams could be heard far away. Hell Gate rises again. The Blood God said fiercely, these are not my true body. Is it interesting for you to do this? Ah, stop, Jurjurji. The Dread Lord put a smile on his lips and said playfully, interesting. After killing more than a dozen pig substitutes, the Blood God finally learned his lesson and hid behind the gate of hell, his voice coming slowly. Okay, I won't say anything anymore, don't do it. I only raise a few pigs in the upper world, leave me some wealth. After saying that, seeing that the other party didn't say anything, the Blood God once again controlled Pig and carefully stretched out one foot. He didn't feel any burning sensation, so he stuck his head out with some fear. The Dread Lord looked sideways, making the little pig tremble in fear, and the Blood God frowned and said, I'm warning you, just for fun, all I have left in the upper world is this baby pig. The Dread Lord looked away. After a long silence, he spoke again, his voice cold to the extreme. You have also been favored by that person. Now that person is in trouble, you don't have to help, but if you cause trouble, I will kill you. There was no trace of anger in this sentence, but it was particularly pure. The Blood God swallowed and forced a smile. Hee, you have already said that that person is kind to you and also kind to me. I can't be so supercilious, don't worry. With that said, the Blood God controlled the little pig and sat back down. But at this time, the atmosphere between the two people was completely gone. Some only have a sense of antagonism between the two parties. The Dread Lord is not losing his temper for no reason. Although his wisdom is not as good as that of the one he follows, he is certainly not bad either. He saw from the beginning that the Blood God was here to stop him, so he took action to express his attitude. As for why the other party wants to prevent his resurrection, only the other party knows. Of course, the Dread Lord doesn't want to listen to the Blood God's reasons. Like the drowned god, he is his fanatical follower. As long as he is resurrected, he is willing to do anything. Seeing how decisive the other party was, the Blood God's expression became serious and he said, I'm not your enemy, and you don't need to threaten me. Now is not the time for him to resurrect, you have to wait. Timing. Don't tell me this, I only believe in myself. The Dread Lord stood up and prepared to leave. The Blood God wanted to say something more, but he swallowed it again. Now, whatever he said to the Dread Lord, the other party would not listen. Black smoke gradually rose around the Dread Lord, and he turned back to look at the piglet controlled by the blood god. Don't think I'm kidding you. This matter of his human body must be finalized. If you dare to cause trouble, I will kill more than just the piglets you control. The power of fear spread rapidly. Even the blood god, who was also a god, felt scared and was slightly startled. The master of fear is really not so easy to provoke. Just as the blood god was thinking about it, black smoke began to rise from the piggy's body, and the next moment, the piggy screamed. Laver, worry, you immortal. This is really my last one, please pay for it. On the other side, in the base, Ji-shin bid farewell to the Pig Spirit King and returned to the upper realm through the Hell Portal. The Pig Spirit King's war against the Wither clan can only hold back the frontal battlefield. If he wants to go deep behind enemy lines to rescue Wunyan, he has to rely on himself. Of course, these are only based on the situation that Wunyan is not dead. If something happens to his little brother, then the nature of this war will change. Ji-shin respects life, that's because he has principles. This does not mean that he is incapable of trampling on life. To carry out a massacre at the drop of a hat, you just need a suitable reason. Besides, the skeleton belongs to the undead clan, and the living beings and the undead are inherently hostile. It shouldn't be too much to kill hundreds of thousands of withered soldiers to bury Wunyan with him. After Ji-shin took a few deep breaths, the white light in his eyes lit up and he shouted sternly. All puppets, gather in front of me. His voice was not loud and dispersed before it spread very far. But this call was like a magic spell, and the base began to shake. The spare puppets sleeping under the base all opened their eyes at the same moment. Their blood-red eyes were like vicious dogs from hell. After receiving the master's order, they began to squeak and twist their bodies. Most of these are stone golems. There are no villagers in the trial area, so you cannot use an iron brushing machine like in the game. Of course, disaster villagers all have spiritual wisdom, and there is no reason why ordinary villagers cannot awaken. In the real world, such a thing as an iron brushing machine would never exist. If it can really be done, Ji-shin can only express his gratitude. Millions of steel puppets are not a dream. Once the order was given, the movements of the backup puppets in the base, whether they were the backup puppets underground or the working puppets mining and farming, were all stagnant. They first located Ji-shin's position, and then ran away without any hesitation. Their king is calling them. More than 100 steel puppets, thousands of stone puppets, and nearly 5,000 functional puppets. The sound of footsteps shook the sky, and the smoke and dust filled the air. Wang Cheng and Chu Ling in the base were also shocked. What's wrong with the puppets? No, something must be wrong with Xiaoxin, hurry up and take a look. Ouch, don't step on me, Brother Chang, help me up quickly, these puppets are crazy. Just like that, under Ji-shin's call, everyone in the base, whether they were people or puppets, rushed towards him. Half an hour later, there were already crowds of puppets in front of Ji-shin. They all knelt on one knee and waited for their king to give the order. Two-dimensional puppets such as bone puppets and ice puppets have no legs. After another 10 minutes, the first person to arrive was the disaster lark, followed by Wang Cheng and others. When they saw that Ji-shin was fine, they all breathed a sigh of relief. I don't know when, Ji-shin has already become their spiritual support. The Calamity Lark was about to step forward and give Ji-shin a hug, but was pulled back by Chu Ling. Don't go there yet. Ji-shin looks bad. Something big must have happened. The boss loves you, but you also have to know what the occasion is and what to do. The disaster lark seemed to understand, but after looking at the serious atmosphere around him, he felt that Sister Linger's words made some sense. As the leader, Wang Cheng stood up and asked, "Boss, what happened?" Ji-shin nodded, his eyes sharp. Something happened to Wunyan. Ji-shin roughly sorted out the ins and outs of the matter. After Wang Cheng and others listened, they all looked indignant. Wunyan should be considered the third group of people to join the team, although they didn't get along with each other for a long time. However, Wunyan's steady and humble style gave everyone a very good impression of him. Now that Wunyan is in trouble, they have no reason not to help. Ji-shin glanced around the crowd and said in a deep voice again. This time is different from the past. This time we have to face an entire race, and there is also a demigod sitting in charge. To be honest, although I have fought against demigods, I still can't figure out how strong they are when they attack with all their strength. So, if this matter is not handled well, people may die. Demigod. Wang Cheng and others looked at each other. This was the first time they had heard of this realm. As players, their realms are subdivided into levels 1 to 50, and the names of each realm are not marked in detail. The creatures in the original world simply divided their realm into 4 steps, and the peak of the 4 steps is the demigod realm. However, whether it is a demigod or a true god, as long as it has something to do with the word god, it is not something that humans can resist. Ji Xin nodded and continued. The demigod is what our players call level 49. However, you don't have to worry too much. I also have my own forces in the lower realm. At least on the frontal battlefield, the Wither King will not pose any threat to us. Wang Cheng, who had a bad temper, took the lead and said, "Boss. Just tell me what to do, and we will all listen to you." As soon as these words came out, the people below all picked up the guy and said one after another. "Yes, FK him. What happened to the demigods? Anyone who dares to touch us will still be beaten. You're right, even if we can't beat us, we still have to let the other side see our temper and bite off a piece of the other side's flesh. That's also good." With a crash, everyone in the Iron Armor gang put on their armor, equipped with weapons and shields, ready to go into battle at any time. Ji Xin was stunned. He felt that the members of the Iron Armor gang had misunderstood what he meant. Although these people have already completed the first step, if we really talk about their combat power, the most powerful one is the combat power of their 6 steel puppets. Let them go to the battlefield and charge. Not really. I will accept your wishes on behalf of Wu Nian, but with so many puppets in my hands, there is no need for you to fight on the battlefield. I'm telling you all this, actually, I just want to tell you that we are in trouble, that's all. Ah. The newly heated blood of the Iron Armor gang members was poured with cold water, and the corners of their mouths all twitched unconsciously. They are weak, they know it in their hearts, but it is a bit sad to have their boss express it in this way. Wang Cheng did not take off his armor. He thought for a moment and his eyes became firm again. "Boss, we know you are thinking about our lives. These are good things, we will keep them in mind. But we are different from the puppets in your hands. We have our own thoughts. We want to repay your kindness with our own actions. Even if the price is your life, you are willing to do so." Wang Cheng said all the words in his heart in one breath. In this troubled world, it is a very happy thing to have a strong person to protect you. However, the longer this kind of protection lasts, it will also be a burden for people like Wang Cheng. They believe that giving is mutual, and being weak is not a reason for them to accept gifts with peace of mind. I'll rub it. Such profound words from the bottom of my heart. Ji Xin felt a little unbelievable. Wang Cheng usually looked like a man with thick eyebrows and big eyes, but he didn't expect his consciousness to be so high at the critical moment. "Okay, since you have this awareness, as the boss, I have to take you to the lower world to gain experience." Wang Cheng was a little excited and wanted to say thank you, but he felt a little angry and couldn't think of anything else to say. Ji Xin didn't care about these small details. With a wave of his hand, all the puppets in the base were split into 2. On the left is the puppet he wants to take to the lower world, and on the right is the working puppet that maintains the normal operation of the base. There is no use in taking something like the wheat puppet with no fighting power to the lower realm. It is better to produce more food to supply the war in the lower realm. What do you think? After finishing this, Ji Xin turned to Chulinger and asked. Chulinger hesitated a little. "Can I choose not to go? I'm a little afraid of the heat." "Okay, no problem at all." Ji Xin wished that someone was watching from the base. "Next, all the systems in the base will be handed over to you, including the operation of the D-store. Don't let me down. By the way, you can reduce the sales of some food appropriately. War consumes a lot of food and grass, so there is nothing wrong with stocking up on more." Chulinger straightened her back and shouted loudly, "Promise to complete the mission." Ji Xin's eyes moved to the disaster lark. The calamity lark's eyes widened, ready to face his mission. But Ji Xin just glanced at him and looked away, without any intention of giving any instructions. The disaster lark became anxious and shouted on the spot. "Ah, master, And I am also willing to go to the lower realm with you to kill enemies. Oh, I accept it, but it won't work. Ji Xinyan refused calmly. The disaster lark was even more anxious. Master agreed to whatever others said, so why did his style of painting change when he came here? Master, I can also jump in space in the lower realm. It's very useful. Why don't you take me with you? Ji Xin directed the puppets to pass through the Hell Gate in an orderly manner, casually made up a reason, and said, because minors are prohibited from watching violent scenes. As soon as this reason came out, Wang Cheng and others almost couldn't hold it back. Minors in Shente Miao cannot watch violent scenes. This is too perfunctory. Ji Xin's eyes looked strange. Wasn't his reason enough? War requires bloodshed, and when bloodshed, mosaic must be fought. What if the lack of mosaic affects the Xinxing of minors? Wang Cheng and others made eye contact and nodded repeatedly. Yeah, this reason is simply irrefutable. The Calamity Lark saw that everyone around him was suppressing laughter, with a pitiful little face. He is a native of the 1100th world, not a time traveler. Naturally, I couldn't get the laugh out of it, thinking that everyone in the base was laughing at me for being too weak. Chulinger hurriedly moved forward to relieve the situation and comforted her. It's good to stay in the base. Just help me take care of the farm. The disaster lark didn't want to stay at the base, and once again looked at Ji Xin, who was busy, hoping to get a chance. When you become an adult, I will definitely take you there. Ji Xin casually drew a big pie. He had the head of Calamity Xingquan, so he didn't need the help of Calamity Lark. If the opponent goes there, he will be a living target. If he is shot with an arrow, there is a risk of burping, so it is better to take care of the farm in the base. The trick of drawing a big pie is quite effective on the disaster lark. The other party didn't say anything else and followed Chulinger honestly towards the farm. After arranging these chores, Ji Xin reconsidered what to do next. Since the Piglin King has not withdrawn his request to build an obsidian production line, he will continue to do so. In about 10 days, the shocked zombies will have the ability to destroy stones. The walls around the base must be replaced with obsidian as soon as possible. Otherwise, before the war in the lower realm has started, the home in the upper realm has been stolen by zombies. Who can I ask to explain this? Ji Xin stopped Wang Cheng and directly appointed him as the person in charge of the project. This obsidian production line is very important. When the time comes, I will contact the piglins to collect the magma. You can just find a few stone puppets to be responsible for pouring it. Okay boss, I'm going to make preparations right now. Wang Cheng had previous experience in operating a mining production line, so he was able to do this easily. After the explanation, Ji Xin took out the head of Calamity Xingquan and casually made a body for him. The next moment, the space crack opened, and the other end was outside the Pig Spirit King's palace. The two piglin barbarians guarding the gate shivered in fright, picked up the axes in their hands, and assumed a fighting posture. Bold, this place is the palace of the Pig Spirit King. Who dares to be so presumptuous here? Ji Xin walked out of the crack calmly. He respected the territorial awareness of the pig spirits and did not jump directly into the Pig Spirit King's palace. Long time no see, you two. I have something I need to see the Pig Spirit King. Can you tell me? It turns out to be Lord Ji, long time no see, Hulu. The Pig Spirit barbarian soldier on the left immediately put away his axe and came forward with a smile. The barbarian soldier on the right became angry and punched the opponent in the face. Lord Ji, whom we just met yesterday, wants to be polite to you, but you're still out of breath and yet you haven't reported it. 5 minutes later, Ji Xin saw the Pig Spirit King again. Has the matter in the upper realm been settled? Yes, it's ready. May I ask, Senior, when will you prepare to start a war? Ji Xin got straight to the point. The Piglin King had already put on his armor at this time, and his fighting spirit was high. The barbarian general has already assembled a large number of troops and can launch a war at any time. Now I am just waiting for your word. If you're flattered, then I'll trouble you, Senior. After I rescue Wu Nian, and given enough time, I will definitely destroy the Withering clan together with Senior. As he spoke, Ji Xin's eyes lit up with white light, and then he pointed a finger to activate the enchantment. Various enchantments quickly appeared on the Piglin King's armor. He doesn't have time to build too many enchanted armors now. Wu Nian's life and death are uncertain. If time goes on, it will only be detrimental to him. He needs the Piglin King to take action to lure out the demigod of the Wither King. In this way, Ji Shin can march straight in without a god in the Withering clan, and no one can threaten his life. He dare not say he is invincible, but at least he can definitely protect himself. As long as Wu Nian is successfully rescued, he can start this war without any worries. The Piglin King closed his eyes and enjoyed the various enchantments on his armor, and his own realm began to stir rhythmically. What a powerful enchanting power! Ha ha ha! From the beginning, I expected it to be very strong, but I didn't expect that after experiencing it myself, there would be other surprises. As he spoke, the Pig Spirit King's aura continued to rise, and the surrounding blocks began to tremble, indicating that the realm seemed to be taking a step forward. Ji Shin's pupils shrank and he couldn't help but take a step back. Is this going to be a breakthrough? The Pig Spirit King is now in the demigod state, and after the breakthrough, he will be in the god state. No one knows how powerful the divine realm is. However, if the Pig Spirit King can really break through, it will be a great blessing for Ji Shin. In this way, he didn't even need to sneak into the Valley of Soul Sand, he could just hug the Piglin King's thigh and beat him all the way there. Ha ha, this is the feeling, it's so amazing. The huge body of the Pig Spirit King slowly floated in the air. At this time, he and the armor on his body seemed to be integrated into one body. The aura around him reached its peak, and even a little white light overflowed from his eyes. Just when Ji Shin thought that his ally was going to become a god. The next moment, the Pig Spirit King's momentum was like a deflated rubber ball, quickly retracting, and his realm fell back to the demigod realm. What a pity, we still didn't succeed. The Pig Spirit King slowly opened his eyes and said Nanan. At that moment, he did touch the threshold of becoming a god, but it seemed that he was blocked by something and failed to succeed. But there's nothing to regret. In my lifetime, I can get a glimpse of the divine realm. Even if today is my day of death, it will be worth it. The Piglin King was optimistic, knowing that there was no use trying to get something he couldn't get. Withered old man, although I failed to successfully enter the divine realm, I have somewhat realized that you will definitely lose this battle. The Pig Spirit King laughed loudly, and the fat all over his body began to burn, and at the same time, the realm of his whole body was mobilized. The next moment, his figure appeared in midair, and he was galloping towards the distance, with the goal being the direction of the Valley of Soul Sand. I'm so happy for nothing. Ji Shin felt a little regretful, just a little bit. After gathering himself, he took out the head of Calamity Xingquan and opened a crack in front of him. The other side was where Wu Nian disappeared. The Valley of Soul Sand, in a matchbox. Wu Nian woke up leisurely, his eyes in a trance. At this time, Withering Xiaoke was carefully feeding him the recovery potion. Wither is an undead creature. The potion that restores the blood volume of creatures is in turn their poison, so Xiaoke's movements are very light. Where am I? Wu Nian turned his one eye to look at the surrounding environment, the voice in his throat was very vague. Wu Nian, you finally woke up. Ah, seeing Wu Nian's reaction, withered Xiaoke quickly moved closer to listen to what the other party wanted to say. But because she was too excited, the recovery potion in her hand accidentally splashed on her body, and the intense pain made her scream. When the wither guard outside heard the movement, he turned his head and asked, what happened? Oh, it's okay, adults, don't worry. Withered Xiaoke endured the severe pain and replied quickly. The guards outside the door, Wither, are all above level 20, and their status is far above that of Wither. The leading guard looked inside and said coldly. Come out as soon as you are rescued. Wu Nian is a tough guy. Even if he is disabled, you can't take it lightly. The guard didn't know that Wu Nian and Withered Xiaoke knew each other, so he kept urging them. Thank you for your concern, sir. I will finish feeding the bottle of recovery potion in my hand and leave. Withered Xiaoke raised the half-filled bottle of potion toward the window and smiled apologetically. The guard looked back and ignored the two. How did you save me? Wu Nian shook his dizzy head, feeling a little depressed. At first, he was pinched by the big hand transformed by the Wither King and was about to die. He only saw Wither Xiaoke entering the hall holding a purple robe, and then fainted. I don't know what happened next, let alone how Xiaoke saved him from the angry Wither King. Withering Xiaoke carefully glanced out the window, then lowered his voice to a very low level and said, I didn't save you, it was mainly because of the help of the purple-robed high priest. Otherwise, even if I had 10 heads, it wouldn't be enough for the king to chop you off. Purple-robed high priest. Wu Nian was surprised that during the period when the Withering clan lived, they did not know of any purple-robed high priest. Why did the high priest you mentioned want to save me? Besides, why is the high priest so proud that even the supreme king of the Wither clan has to give him face? Wither Xiaoke put down the recovery potion in his hand and replied softly. It's normal that you don't know. This purple-robed high priest. The one who was recently rewarded was a foreigner. Quote, we don't know his specific name. Because he often wears purple robes, we call him the high priest in purple robes. Withering Xiaoke pointed at the purple robe Wu Nian was wearing and said again. Of course, he asked me to put on the purple robe you were wearing. Wu Nian understood clearly and slowly stroked the purple robe in his hand, not feeling anything special about it. This is just an ordinary robe. Foreign race. The other party is also a player like me. Wu Nian asked again. If this is the case, it would make sense for the other party to save him. Withering Xiaoke smiled and shook his head and replied. Do you think it's possible? Our Wither clan is very xenophobic. It's not like you don't know that. He is a little white skeleton from the upper world. He can be regarded as our close relative. As Withered Xiaoke was speaking, he was suddenly stunned for a moment, with a hint of doubt in his eyes. Wu Nian, who has turned into a skeleton, looks a bit like the high priest in his purple robe. Is it an illusion? Wu Nian felt a little frightened when Xiaoke looked at him. He looked at the bloody scene on his body again, and a feeling of sadness and inferiority welled up in his heart. What's wrong? Am I a little ugly like this? No, no, no. Wither Xiaoke came back to his senses and explained quickly. You also know that the aesthetics of our skeletons only depends on personality, not appearance. I just feel like you look more and more like a skeleton now, ha ha ha. Whether they are the white skeletons in the upper realm or the withered skeletons in the lower realm, they are born without a trace of flesh and blood. The reason why wither skeletons can produce intelligence like other races is because they themselves have produced the source of wither. This withering origin is like the flesh and heart of withering skeletons, allowing them to live like normal creatures. This is also the reason why Wu Nian is still alive despite losing most of his flesh and blood. His awakened profession is the A-level withering prince. While possessing flesh and blood, he also gave birth to a withering origin. In other words, the flesh and blood that this withered origin is replacing at this time is working. Wu Nian wanted to get up, but was pushed back by Wither Xiaoke. As you can see, there are guards outside the door. It's impossible for you to escape. Wu Nian's eyes flashed with light, his exposed teeth clenched, he turned on the system and looked out the window. The 3 skeletons outside are all at level 20. Not to mention that he is now severely disabled, even in his prime, he could only be beaten. No, I have to find a way out. Only in this way can I possibly avenge this skinning and flesh digging. Wu Nian gritted his teeth, and the anger in his heart continued to surge. Withering Xiaoke had no choice but to pick up the recovery potion and feed the other party some more, and softly persuaded him. We can't rush this matter. You are so injured now that there is no possibility of escaping. It's better to heal your injuries here first, wait and see what happens, and take each step by step. Withering Xiaoke's thinking is also very simple. She is very satisfied if the other party can save his life. Wu Nian took a deep breath and regained clarity in his mind. He felt that what Withered Xiaoke said was reasonable. Now that I am lucky to be able to save my life, how can I still hope to escape from here? After more than half an hour, with the help of the recovery potion, Wu Nian's injuries finally stabilized, and his spirit became much clearer. Okay, you go out quickly, so as not to be suspected by others. Wu Nian's voice was very soft, almost like a breeze coming from his throat. Withering Xiaoke understood what the other party meant, tidied up a little, and was about to leave. Before leaving, she still said a little worriedly. Take good care of yourself. If you want to do something, please discuss it with me. Don't act alone. Withered Xiaoke said this very euphemistically, meaning he warned Wu Nian not to think about escaping. Even if you want to run away, you should tell her, maybe she can help her. On the other side, Ji Shin walked out of the crack in space. He looked around and frowned. He had only thought about how to get rid of the Withering King before, but he had ignored the most important detail, how to get in. The Valley of Soul Sand is so big, and without a guide, the possibility of getting lost in it is too high. Impulsive, too little preparation. Ji Shin criticized himself, paced and began to think of a solution. He was not steady in what he did, but he was definitely well prepared. This was the first time he was at a loss as he was today. Care leads to chaos. You must pay attention to this in the future. It's not terrible to make mistakes, just remember to avoid them as much as possible in the future. After all, there are no born saints. Now the Piglin King is rushing to the battlefield, and time waits for no one, so he has to bite the bullet and go in. Ji Shin waved his hand to control a block to float, and jumped on it with both feet. The slowing effect of soul sand is simply a big killer hidden in the dark. But for Ji Shin, it's not a big deal. He has the head of disaster resurrection, and can control cubes to fly. Even if he is really lost, he can easily escape. Just when Ji Shin was about to enter the Valley of Soul Sand, a pig roared behind him, and a pig spirit team came behind him at some point. Lord Ji, don't leave. Lord Ji, don't leave. Ji Shin turned around and looked. He recognized the person who came. It was Wu Yu, the pig spirit whom he helped during the coming-of-age ceremony. Pigling Wu Yu. Yes, it's the little one. Seeing that Piglin Wu Yu had caught up, he let out a long breath. His attitude was very low. Even the pig spirit king had to respect the man in front of him, and he didn't dare to have any airs. This is what you are doing. Ji Shin glanced at the pigs and saw that the other team was obviously patrolling here. The pig spirit Wu Yu wiped the sweat from his forehead and said with a smile. We are the Piglin team patrolling here. I've heard about you. Those BL*CKM*N are bullying you too much. I've wanted to kill them for a long time. Ji Shin was speechless. His time is very precious. If you are like this, I will leave. The Piglin teammate beside him snorted, interrupting the Piglin's Wu Yu complaint. Oh, haha, these are not the point. Our power is limited and we can't help you much, but please accept this. With that said, Piglin Wu Yu took out an enchanted book and a fragmented picture from his backpack. We pooled our money to buy this. Lord Ji, you may need it. Ji Shin took the enchanted book and the fragmented picture, and their names appeared in front of him on the spot. Enchanted book, Soul Rush I*1. Map mostly blank, *1. Players walking on the soul sand will be slowed down by the effect. After being enchanted with soul speed, this deceleration effect will be greatly reduced, or even directly immune. But this is of little use to him, and besides, this is only a first-level enchanted book of soul speed. What was useful to Ji Shin was the second thing handed over by the other party, a map. Although most of the map is blank and has no records, another fortress is clearly marked on it. In this way, it saved him a lot of trouble. Even if this fortress was not the place where Wu Nian was imprisoned, he could still capture someone alive and ask for directions. At least you don't have to fly around like a headless fly. Ji Shin smiled and asked, Wu Yu, how do you know that I don't have the enchanted book of soul speed? Not only does he not have soul speed, he also does not have experience repair. Because these enchantments do not appear in the enchantment table. All the enchantments that Ji Shin can use now have appeared on the enchantment table. Other rare enchanted books must be obtained and stored through later collection. The pig spirit Wu Yu scratched his head, smiled innocently, and said, Lord Ji, I have looked carefully at the breastplate you enchanted me. There are many types, but not all, so I just guessed. Ha ha ha, I didn't expect you to be quite smart. Ji Shin nodded. Although the enchanted book of soul speed was only a first-level one, the price was certainly not cheap among the piglins. The pig spirit Wu Yu has such a heart, which is commendable. It doesn't matter if you have intentions. If you treat me sincerely, I won't let you suffer. Ji Shin said, throwing the enchanted book of soul speed behind him. The lapis lazuli puppet in the shadow was already impatient, and when it stretched out its head, it made a loud noise. Open black lens bracket ding. New enchantment detected. Open black lens bracket soul speed I1 close black lens bracket. Immediately afterwards, Ji Shin's fingertips were surrounded by gleaming purple light, and he stretched out his hand to point out, and a large amount of enchanting power poured into the group of pig spirits. Open black lens bracket ding. Golden boots 1 enchantment successful. Open black lens bracket ding. Golden axe 1 enchantment successful. Comma. In the blink of an eye, the equipment of everyone in the team was enchanted with all attributes. As for this enchantment, the first one is soul speed. This, Lord G, you have misunderstood. This is not what we meant. The Piglin team all stared in disbelief. This entire Piglin team is from the same clan, and they are all Wuyu's family. I gave this gift today just to thank Jishin for his help to Wuyu. From the beginning, it was just out of repayment and I didn't think too much about it. Ji Xinluo's move directly turned them into asking for favors. Ha ha ha, it doesn't matter, this is what I mean. If you really feel sorry for yourself, just kill a few more withered skeletons. Jishin laughed loudly, controlled the cube under his feet and walked away. This Piglin team is left alone with 7 points of surprise and 3 points of sorrow. After Ji Xinfei disappeared, Wuyu's father kicked him away and said fiercely. I said to buy the enchanted book of soul speed too, but you insisted on buying I. Now you are embarrassed. Pigling Wuyu was a little aggrieved. I also wanted to give the two as a gift, but our family can't afford it. We had to sell the iron in exchange for the I. HMPH. I am worthless and my son is like a pig. A stream of hot air came out of Wuyu's father's nostrils, and he continued, let's go. Go to the battlefield, kill a few more BL*CKM*N and buy soul speed 3 for Lord G. Comma. On the other side, the Piglin King has arrived at the southern battlefield of the Crimson Forest. His body was suspended in midair, taking in all the scenes under the battlefield. At this time, the withered skeleton army and the pig spirit army were already fighting together, attacking each other and killing each other desperately. The sound of tearing flesh and bone was mixed together. The Piglin King looked around and found no sign of the barbarian general. He guessed that he might be on another battlefield. Let's start from here. The easiest way to lure out the Wither King is to join the battlefield as a demigod. No matter what kind of creature, once it reaches the demigod realm, the number of enemies will no longer be a factor that restricts strength. In other words, now that the Piglin King enters the scene, it will be an inhumane massacre. Withered old man, come out and fight me quickly, or I will kill your entire army by myself. The Piglin King took a sharp breath, and his body muscles began to expand. The next moment, his figure appeared in the center of the battlefield. Just the momentum of his whole body crushed a group of skeleton soldiers without stepping on the steps. The Pig Spirit King felt that it was not satisfying enough, so he raised his hand and transformed a huge palm shadow in the air, with streaks of golden light on it. Withered old man, why don't you show up quickly and fight me? The Wither clan looked up at the phantom of the giant hand in the sky. The entire army was stunned on the spot. Fear spread quickly like a plague and was out of control. If this palm were to strike down firmly, there would be no chance of survival for any skeleton soldier who had stepped down 3 steps under the palm. Run quickly and leave the range covered by the shadow of your palm. Quick, send a signal and ask the king to fight. The Piglin King is crazy. Just the momentum exuded by the demigods directly caused the army of withering skeletons to collapse. Completely opposite to the Wither clan is the Piglin clan. When they saw their king personally going into battle, their morale soared, and they were not afraid of death. The skeleton side was losing ground. Stabilize. Stabilize the morale of the army. A level 40 skeleton came from behind the army and rushed straight towards the phantom palm in the air. It is obvious that this skeleton is the commander of this army. Skeleton generals of the 3rd level and above, follow me and break the palm of the Pig Spirit King to delay the king's arrival. The skeleton commander gave an order, and the strong men of the Wither clan moved out one after another. They must block the palm of the Pig Spirit King, otherwise, this army may evaporate in an instant, and everyone below the 3rd level will be shot into powder. The Piglin King looked at the skeleton commander who stood up with contempt in his eyes. You just stepped on the stairs 4 times. Call the Wither King to come here, you are not qualified. The skeleton commander burst out with momentum and said, don't underestimate people. It's the same 4 steps. I want to see how strong the demigod level powerhouse is. After saying that, the skeleton commander roared and rushed towards the phantom hand in the air, preparing to receive the blow forcefully. The same 4 steps. Haha, who are you to dare to reach the same level as me? The Pig Spirit King sneered, stretched out an index finger of the giant shadow hand, and directly slapped the level 40 general into the ground. Life or death is unknown. Thanks for watching, please like and subscribe.